Happy birthday to Trailer Hitch.
To us?
To us.
Yeah.
The podcast, not... I'm born in February, you're July.
August, but close enough.
It's
a summer.
Summer's a flat circle.
It's a blur for everyone,
It's a flat circle,
isn't it?
yes, it is.
We're 80.
We are 80.
80 episodes living strong, baby.
Trailer Hitch is 80, and James, I just looked it up. The average life expectancy for a male in the U.S. is 78 years, so
wow.
Trailer Hitch has outlived most men in the U.S.
Well, I mean, in episodes, not years. We've only been doing this for like 2.5 years or 3 years.
Sure, but with podcasts, it works like dog years. Each episode is a year
that
for a
how
podcast.
that works?
Yeah.
Wow.
So like the shows that have like 400 episodes, those are like vampires. They're immortal, right?
You can't kill them.
You cannot. No.
We've tried.
No. Right into Last Podcast on the Left all you want.
Yeah.
That thing's still going. You can't kill it. To celebrate our 80th episode, we are actually coming off of Halloween, and so we're going to be transitioning away from that this
Well, it's
episode.
Halloween today.
Yeah.
By the day we're recording this. It's Halloween.
Mm-hmm. So we are going to be transitioning from the spooky to the secular, to things that are not spooky, to Thanksgiving, because it's an oft-forgotten holiday.
Thanksgiving is actually my favorite holiday.
Dude, it's the best.
Yeah.
This episode, we will be tuning up Little Joe, which we reviewed during our Cannes Film Festival episode.
Yeah. This one was...
At the time, we thought it was like a mumblecore comedy, but alas, it's apparently a psychological horror film.
We'll get into it.
So we are then going to be talking about a full trailer for The Grudge.
Dun, dun, dun. It's a remake, by the way.
A remake.
Of a remake.
That was already remade. We'll get into that. Then to transition, we're also going to be talking about the Aeronauts, which involves hot air balloons, which I guess could still be scary to some people. The fear of flying is a pretty real thing.
Yeah. Keep me on the ground. That's what I'm saying.
And then we are going to be doing a trailer in the Rearview on El Camino to completely get us away from...
Actually, I haven't watched it yet.
Dude,
okay, so here's what happened. I'm like, I'm going to watch all of Breaking Bad, rewatch it all before the movie.
They have a recap before the movie.
Look, I didn't have the time.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. So we won't be talking about El Camino. That's okay because Jojo Rabbit came out. So we'll just do a trailer in the rear view on Jojo.
Well, here's the thing.
Okay.
I actually haven't seen Jojo Rabbit yet.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, what have you seen?
I've seen Zombieland 2.
Fuck me, I did too. Okay, well, I guess we're not transitioning from horror completely. We're going to start with horror, leave horror for a second, and then dive back into horror. After this, from then on, it's all going to be turkeys and a good time.
Absolutely.
We promise.
Yeah.
You can't haul your stuff without a trailer hitch. Trailer hitch.
Releases by the movie trailers. We're Trailer Hitch. This movie might totally suck, but the whiskey sure is going down fine. Yeah, we're Trailer Hitch.
Aforementioned apologies if I'm sounding a bit stressed coming back.
You sound out of breath.
Well, we just had some trick-or-treaters come to the door while the theme song was going. I tried to give them a York peppermint patty, and they all just laughed in my face. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Their breath wasn't smelling that great. They could have used the York.
You would say they wouldn't do anything for a York peppermint patty?
It's a nice, refreshing snack, and it makes your breath smell great. I mean, I don't want any of them, but that's beside the point. Hi, welcome to Trailer Hitch.
Welcome to Trailer Hitch, everyone.
I'm Kevin.
And I'm James.
This is a movie trailer podcast. We rate and review movie trailers on a scale of need to see more, or never need to see. If James and I both give a trailer a need to see rating, or in the case of Zombieland 2, need to see mores, we see the movie and report back to you guys in a segment called Trailer in the Rearview, in which we review the trailer in retrospect, check to see if it set us up properly for the film, and then review the film writ large as well. But before we get to that, we're going to be talking about trailers too and see if there's going to be anything else coming up.
We got some other trailers, absolutely.
Yes.
Let's dive into it.
Absolutely. So we're starting off with a tune-up. Now, a tune-up is where we've already reviewed a trailer on this podcast.
In some capacity. It could be, yeah.
We'll get into it with what Little Joe was, yes. And so we've already talked about Little Joe on this podcast. We now have a full trailer. Well, if there's a full trailer, then what did you guys talk about last time? You may be wondering. So if you go back to our Conquest episode where we review every film in the Cannes Film Festival that's competing for the Palme d'Or.
That gives us a
clip
or a trailer.
Or a clip.
Because there was one that gave us nothing.
There was one that gave us absolutely nothing. That is true. Everything I've heard, by the way, is that movie sucks. So I think we saved ourselves some time.
So they saved themselves time. It's
Yeah,
like, we're not
basically.
making a trailer for this heap of trash.
We're going to pray no one remembers this. We're going to get booed so hard.
Moving on.
Little Joe, they gave us clips. So, like, there were these little 1-minute clips. James and I pulled one of them. And our impression of it was... Oh, this kind of looks like a quirky mumblecore comedy.
For those who don't know, what is mumblecore?
Not really going for ha-has. It's more so going for discomfort.
Sure.
Now, like, the biggest examples I can think of are virtually anything the Duplass brothers make. There was also a movie called Cyrus that was starring John C. Reilly.
I remember Cyrus.
Yeah, so that's
I've
an
never
example.
seen it, but I remember the trailers for it.
Like, they're very
I remember watching it and going, that looks weird. I'll probably never see it.
Right. And, like, the humor is built on tension and, like, how uncomfortable these characters are interacting with each other. And that's all I got out of Ben Winshaw talking to his superior within the plant was, oh, this is like kind of weird and uncomfortable, but it seemed to be going for awkward humor. And now we have this trailer. I guess there's still a little bit of that, but it appears as if there's more. So let's take a look at this.
The first antidepressant happy plant.
What do you say we call him Little Joe?
I think Little Joe's pollen has triggered something. Little Joe changes the people he infects. You're a good mother. But which of your children will you choose?
Good night, Little Joe.
All right, so that clip we watched planted a seed for Little Joe, but now it's sprouted into a full plant. Let's get into it. This is Little Joe.
Yeah, I have a question for you, though.
Yes.
Are you happy with it?
We'll get into it. It's fine. Here, let's give a brief
because
rundown
the plant makes you happy. That's the whole thing. That's
True.
The whole
Yes.
thing of
Yeah.
That's why. That's fine.
Yes.
It's fine,
Okay.
whatever.
So the trailer opens up with a group of scientists and is like, ladies and gentlemen, we have the first mood-altering plant that can cure depression. And we look down at not pot, but these red, unearthly-looking plants that are growing. One of these scientists, played by Emily Beecham, is like, okay, cool, well, I'm going to bring one of these plants home for my kid. Like, I guess she just takes one out on layaway or something. And this kid leans in to give it a sniff when some pollen shoots out. And he does not immediately look happy. In fact, it looks like he's having an asthma attack.
Like, he looks mentally like, I feel weird.
Something's not
off.
happy. Yeah. But you're right. It does definitely... That actor who plays the kid conveys a lot with just a couple of looks. It's
just
really good.
One sniff and, like, 4 looks. It's very interesting, and it grips you.
Yes. So we have another scientist played by Ben Winshaw, who seems like a very eager beaver. He's like, oh, I'm just so happy to be working on this project.
Like a Paddington.
A less wholesome Paddington, yes. We should just always find a way to compare Ben Winshaw to Paddington in some way, regardless of the role.
Yeah.
Exactly. So he's working at the lab late one night, and then he also gets hit with a burst of pollen. And all of a sudden, we start to see the people around Emily Beecham's character turn in some way. Now, they don't become zombies. This isn't like a flesh-eating virus movie or anything like that. There's just something distinctly off about all of these people who end up getting infected.
And none of them even, like, do anything that nefarious. Mm-hmm. It's just a look in their eye.
Yeah.
And the music. The music and also the big words on the screen telling us that something's bad happening. They're not happy.
Yeah.
It's kind of silly when you sit back and think of it on paper. I didn't really see anything in this trailer of people doing horrible things or infectious things.
The only major thing that I saw is we had the older woman who was working in the lab, and she tries to leave, and the door is locked.
The pollen locked the door on her. Yeah, so it's a real
just one
conundrum
root,
there.
just like slither,
Yeah.
slither, clock.
You just
and
see a
then
little,
slithers back.
and then it's just like
Gets
winds
into the
over to
locking
the mechanism, and she's like,
Rusts the entire damn
and
thing.
and she just looks back, and she's like, "Ah, you plant you! I should have saw that coming." No, of course.
This door seems happier than normal. What's going on?
But I'm not. What's happening here? No, obviously you're right. That part of the trailer is the only implication.
Yes, but even then, it's not dastardly necessarily.
Right.
It's
that
they're
scene
trying,
may lead to something dastardly,
correct.
though.
Well, what they're doing is they're trying to spread the infection. They're trying to get this lab worker
Take
to
her
also
mask
get
off.
to also get infected.
Yeah.
Well, maybe the pollen can just work the fucking
Untie
knots.
it.
Yeah.
Give her a little shoulder rub.
Pollen
While it's
just
at
works.
it. It's like, just relax.
Pollen-
Take a breather.
Pollen works the knot, and then she's like, my mask seems happier now, too. And then, yeah, it just all goes south from there. So, yeah, we do. The back half of the trailer definitely gets more impressionistic and relies a lot on the color palette, the compositional
Gorgeous,
skill.
though.
And everything does look really great.
Really beautiful.
Yeah. And it does elicit the tension that I think the title cards and the intellectual bullying in this try very hard to instill on you. They are integrated in a way where it's at least coming up while we're getting an image.
Exactly.
flow.
These were popping up from the plant.
Yeah.
Or, they were...
If they're popping up from the plant, is the Little Joe trailer editor also trying to say that critic quotes are supposed to make you happy, but they really shouldn't?
I think you're reading into it too much.
Oh, I'm going to be doing that a lot with this trailer, buddy. Get ready. But yes, the trailer ends with Emily Beecham's child is definitely infected. You can tell that he's got that weird ass twinkle in his eye.
And he's hanging with
Ben Whishaw.
Paddington.
Yeah, with Paddington. They're having energy drinks and not tea. The first sign something is amiss.
That should be marmalade.
Goddamn right it should be. And the trailer ends with someone asking Emily Beecham's character, what would you rather have?
You're a
You
good
have to-
mother.
you have to pick your child.
But which child will you choose?
Yes.
It's something like that.
The image ends with Emily Beecham smiling, looking down, and saying, good night, little Joe. Reverse on plan.
I
We get
choose
our
you.
Yeah, exactly.
As she tucks the plant into bed. But no. It's not that obvious. But she's definitely just looking fondly at the plant after that line of dialogue. It just feels a little obvious that she ends up
making her choice.
She's choosing this plant. Clearly the plant makes her feel happier than her actual son did. So, but he's a teenager. Can we blame her?
Yeah, he's just masturbating and playing Fortnite. This plant is actively lifting her mood, damn it. That is probably my first major note of the trailers. I definitely don't want to see her make that choice.
And we
it
talked.
Could be a misdirect.
It could be a misdirect. I think it would have been stronger to go out just on the question.
Just cut to the kid laying in his room alone, and then match cut it to the
Little
lab
Joe?
from the outside.
Oh, the lab, sure.
And it's okay, which home will you go back
to?
You know what I mean? And when we say on Trailer Hitch that we like our trailers to be their own little short stories, we don't necessarily want an end with those too. That was an issue for me. I will also say no one seems to be made actively happy by it. Because without that, I feel like the very first implication where it's just sneeze some pollen at me and I was just not feeling it. I feel like you'd be like, okay, we clearly fucked up. Let's start to look into these plans.
Yeah.
Maybe they're going to work something in where they're like, we've already sold a bunch of these, so we got to keep this going. Wait, what do you mean you took one home to your fucking kid? Oh, layaway. Okay, yeah, I forgot we set that up. You're right. So yeah, it's one of those things where not only are we missing the consequence of having little Joe in your home, we're also missing the initial reason why the plant would be in your home in the first place.
We don't really get any indication that this thing does what it's supposed to do before it starts malfunctioning.
Correct.
And maybe I thought the whole thing might be an interesting allegory on how different things make different people happy.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm just not a plant guy.
Yeah. So, give me some bacon and get this plant out of my face. But we didn't really get any of that. Maybe that's the whole movie. Maybe the entire movie doesn't show anyone feeling happy.
Then I feel like they're trying to make a point that happiness can't really be achieved. It's just like kind of a neutral state is the best you can do. I think that's dumb. I feel like like the movie isn't really earning that message just through plants.
Well, not through the trailer anyway.
At least not, especially not through the trailer.
Maybe the movie does it better, but we might not know. It depends on what you rate it, Kevin, actually, if you'll find out or not.
I do want to say, I do think that the imagery within here is really good. I love how sterile the lab looks, with the exception of the red jutting out from the plants. I really love the lighting changes in the house, because there is kind of a giallo horror thing going on, and I probably mispronounced that. Dario Argento, that director. There is some of that inspiration within its use of stylized lighting, so like the colors through the lighting. When the kid is watering the plant, the room is now this weird purple hue.
Sure, yeah.
Instead of like the off green we saw when the mom dropped the plant off. I find all that stuff really interesting. I think there's a lot of good in here, but from like a root story standpoint, I'm kind of swerving a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and give this a need to see more.
Yeah, I'm going to need to see more also. I think I really like the style of it. But there's just so many like things in this trailer that made me go... There's so many things in this trailer that made me just like ask questions though. And not like enticing questions, but just like, did you forget to do this? Or did you forget to do that? Or did you forget to include this? And that's not a good feeling to have while watching a trailer, you know? So I think that's why it's firmly at a need to see more for me. Yeah.
All right, well, we clearly had a bone to pick with Little Joe, but now we got a grudge to tackle next. So this is The Grudge.
Hello, it's Peter Spencer. Anyone home?
Someone was murdered at that house.
Why did you never go into that place? I went to the house.
Hello?
We need to leave right now.
Where's the beef, you may ask? Well, my beef is with The Grudge. This is The Grudge, directed by Nicholas Pesce, co-written by him, story by Jeff Buhler. This is starring John Cho, Andrea Riseborough, Demian Bashir. Our random shout out, because we here at Trailer Hitch like to give random shout outs to cast and crew members, because it's not build people time to hog all the credit. I will ask you to not do the grudge noise for this, because everyone hears John Cho's name all the time. This person...
Excuse me, I was just clearing my throat.
This person typically doesn't get shut out, and so we want to just let Kristen Sawatsky, the stunt driver, know, hey, good job, bud. You drove a car in a movie. That's
respect.
Pretty rad.
Mad respect. We don't have a grudge with you.
Exactly. All right. So let's flip this beef patty, get to talking about what's going on in this trailer. So this opens up with a house that is going to be sold. John Cho plays a real estate agent, shows up, knocks on the door. No one answers. And so, like any good real estate agent, he just breaks in. He heads upstairs, finds a bathtub full of black water. Does what any reasonable person would do upon finding this. Sticks his face right goddamn next to it. We get our first jump scare with a ghoul. Now, this ghoul apparently didn't feel like committing to anything, because it just sort of gives him a wet willy, and then John Cho fucks off.
Yeah. Every single person watching this trailer knows what's going to come out of that gunk, gross water.
They do give a ton of leeway leading up to that pop-up from the bathtub.
It didn't get me.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things actually in this trailer that like didn't get me, and I think they're supposed to like make you jump.
John Cho escapes and calls up Andrea Riseborough, and he's like, so there's something weird about that house we're trying to sell. And Andrea Riseborough's like, all right, cool, I'll check it out. She talks to a cop, and the cop's like, oh, yeah, I can understand why you're kind of upset. And that is because there was actually a homicide. Yeah, the house is just spooking up a storm. We do get an image of not the Grudge boy. We get what kind of looks like the ring girl popping up from the bathtub.
Not great with the lore of these two legends. Yeah,
but we did watch The Ring versus the Grudge.
We
so
did.
We have seen the Grudge boy get body slammed through a table, if I recall correctly.
It was very...
It was such a strange film. You guys should see it.
It was something.
Yeah, and the trailer ends with John Cho taking a shower, and then a hand sticks out from his hair and, like, grabs him.
That's the other one that I'm like, I think I was supposed to jump here, but, like, I didn't.
Well, and that particular scare is kind of ruined by the previous Grudge movie. There is a title card near the beginning of this that calls this a twisted new vision. And I'm like, oh, honey. And I'm not even trying to play the hipster card of, like, there's a Japanese movie. We have an American remake of this
Sarah Michelle Gellar was in it.
Yeah, man.
It's kind of
Came
like...
out in, like, 2004.
It's kind of near and dear to my heart. Like,
Yeah,
it was, like, one of the first, like, scary movies I went and saw where I was sitting next to a girl that I had a crush on. Aww. Yeah. And she, like... was close to my arm. That was a big deal.
Whoa.
I was like, whoa.
I need...
This movie's awesome.
I'm gonna need a fainting couch before we continue with this story. This is getting me hot and bothered.
Touching my arm.
Shut up.
Like, physical contact. It was a good moment for me.
Did you kiss?
No.
Oh, thank God. You would have gotten cooties if you had.
Yeah, I would have been championing that moment, not the
no.
arm touch.
Talk about the arm touch. Yeah. That's where the goods are, man.
It was an innocent time. But yeah, no, there's...
Last year.
There's a special place in my heart for that Sarah Michelle Gellar one.
Yeah.
But you're right. Calling this one a twisted new version is very odd because A, it's not new. This is a remake of a remake.
Yeah.
So there. B, if you're going the route of, well, yeah, but it's a twisted new take on it. I'm like, but it's not though. Literally everything I saw in this trailer was just like, yeah, it looks like the Grudge. It looks like the same Grudge I've seen before. Like nothing.
But now with John Cho, which
I guess,
I like John Cho.
I love John Cho.
Yeah.
There's some really great imagery.
I liked what they were doing with the score. Like they were having these weird violin stings. And then
that was
matching it
cool.
with jump
I did like
there.
that.
This is by no means like the worst trailer.
No, it's not. It's just
even within the past couple of months. You know what I mean?
It's mostly just meh. You know, I wish it was better.
Yeah, the content within this.
I wanted it to live up to the title card, A Twisted New Vision.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't.
Yeah.
On, like, any of the words in that sentence. Maybe,
It is,
Yeah. As of right now, this sits at a never need to see it. Just because it doesn't try... I feel like it doesn't really try anything new.
I will give the trailer props for some creative use of editing. I think the use of its score is pretty solid. Goddamn, man, outside of that, I'm really struggling.
Like, we get a decent setup, and then it's just very montagey after that of just, like, creepy stuff for the rest of the trailer.
You're right. Like, it really lacks punch as a horror film. Yeah, man, from a content standpoint, this is a pretty hard never need to see.
Yeah, man.
Well, I'm glad we blew that one up, much like one would a balloon?
Certain kinds of balloons, certainly not a hot air balloon.
To the Aeronauts!
To understand the weather is to prepare our world for floods, droughts, famines.
I asked for funding for my own expedition into the skies.
I need to make studies of the air. I need you to fly us higher than anyone has ever been.
Are you ready?
You have no conception of how ready I am.
Hold on! Around the World in 80 Days, or maybe more depending on how shitty the storm is. This is The Aeronauts, directed by Tom Harper, written by Jack Thorne. This is starring Felicity Jones, Eddie Redmayne, and Himesh Patel. Our random shout out is going to go to Guy Samuels, who is the Royal Society member. Hey, Guy, we think we saw you in that scene where everyone was walking out of a room trying to avoid Eddie Redmayne. Good job, bud. I believed you in that moment.
Don't make eye contact.
So here's what's going on in The Aeronauts. We begin with Eddie Redmayne, who's got a dream. He's got a vision. He wants to get into a hot air balloon. He wants to sail around the world. Issue is he doesn't have a hot air balloon or money to get one.
Just a pocket full of dreams.
Basically, yeah. So he goes to this Royal Society and is like, hey guys, give me the money for this. And they're like, we're trying to like cure diseases and feed the poor. What are you on about? He's like, oh, I think it'd be neat. So these Royal Society members are like, you're an active waste of time. And they walk out of the room, leaving Eddie Redmayne to just like nod to himself.
Yeah,
and...
just like, I think that went well.
Yeah.
A couple people lingered before they ran away.
They were holding the door open. Maybe that was them considering staying.
For a hot second.
But someone does give Eddie Redmayne the tip, well, if you want to go around the world, you should really go talk to this broad. He goes and he meets Felicity Jones. So Eddie Redmayne and Felicity Jones, of course, starred in The Theory of Everything together, which was a very stuffy British biopic. Now here they are together again, and Eddie Redmayne approaches her and is like, here's the deal, man, I want to go around the world. You got
to his benefit, though. He doesn't want to go around the world. He just wants to go straight up. His dream is to explore the atmosphere and stratosphere to be able to predict weather patterns. Like that's really what he's pushing for.
There is a somewhat altruistic purpose of what he's
but
trying to do. He's trying to achieve it in the dumbest way possible. But there is a good undertone to what he's trying to do. So Felicity Jones looks at him and is like, do you even have a hot air balloon? And he's like, nah.
You do though, right?
She's like, all right, cool, man. Now, Eddie Redmayne shows up with Felicity Jones. Eddie Redmayne is in a nice suit, and Felicity Jones is in like a really garish outfit.
She's clearly
she's selling the show.
Yeah, she's a showman, and she is like really selling this to the crowd.
And Eddie Redmayne's like, well, you're late. And it's like, well, without her, you wouldn't have a fucking balloon.
First of all, in the trailer, we don't see her being late.
Right.
It's just, here's the scene. She's there. He goes, you're late. And then instantly he's like, you ready? And she's like, I'm more ready than you'll ever know. And I went, what was the point of the "you're late" line? It brought nothing to this trailer at all.
I guess to highlight the difference between she is obviously a bit more garish. She's kind of treating this for show, whereas he is treating this as like a more rigorous scientific study. But at the same time, you get that from their clothes.
Their differences in wardrobe.
Damn straight,
yeah. And also, their like differences in personality isn't addressed later in the trailer anyway. So it's not like you need to keep calling back to it.
And that's something else. I don't know where the wardrobe change happens, but once they get up into the atmosphere, she's not in that anymore. She's in a very
unless they like take off for the crowd, but then they land just like 2 blocks later just so she can change, and then they go up from there. And then they go
straight up from there. God, I would fucking love that. That, or there is just a changing room in the undercarriage of the hot air balloon. Sure, whatever.
Those
whatever
baskets are roomier than you think.
Yeah.
Diving in a little bit more, the effects are okay.
Yeah, because we see them go through a storm. At one point, we get more or less a flashback on the ground of Eddie Redmayne talking to a scientist who's like, you realize there's less oxygen the further up you go. Have you accommodated for that? And you see, like, him and Felicity Jones passing out left and right.
They seemed very ill-prepared. They don't seem like... And again, it's a very big basket, so there's probably compartments. But it doesn't look like they have any sort of instruments to study the weather up there. It's just like, let's just go up and see what it's like.
They're just, like, flapping around in the storm, and it's like, it's gonna rain!
I'll feel it in my knees. The performances look good, and especially if they're in a basket in a blue room or a giant green screen. Yes. At least these two are bringing something to the table.
I definitely got, when they quote unquote first meet, like this hint of attraction. I saw that and was like, is this just kind of left over from The Theory of Everything, where it's like, oh yeah, we're supposed to be in a multi-year
because their relationship ended so well in that one.
It didn't.
No, that was the
yeah, I'm remembering it didn't. Yeah.
Anyway, what do you give this one?
I'm gonna be real. This is probably a never need to see.
I think it is for me too. You know, I kind of wanted more. And honestly, it looks more interesting to me than The Theory of Everything. This one at least has the facade that it looks more interesting.
Yeah, kind of in stuffy biopic fashion, but then it transitions into a survival film, but like it's got action elements to it with someone happening to fall out of the basket but holding onto a rope, and Eddie Redmayne's got to be like, hold on.
But it's also like, we're having a grand old time. Just scream because it's so silent. The clouds are
it's so
pretty.
silent up here. Isn't this great? Oh, now you're ruining it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the ending button felt completely strange to me. I wasn't really sure why Felicity Jones was climbing up onto
it's like, well, she's in the basket and she's like, shaking the rope and she's like, something's frozen. But it looked like what she was looking at was like a mechanism on the inside of the balloon. But then she decides to climb up onto the top of it for a reason. I don't know. It's a little unclear.
Yeah.
And then she passes out because of oxygen. Anyway, it's a never need to see it for me as well. So
it's been a rough go of it for trailers so far.
Should we talk about movies in their
let's
entirety?
Talk about movies. Let's see if anything improves here. Now, this would be normally where we would leave behind Halloween, but not this time. We are instead going to be talking about Zombieland 2 Double Tap.
Let's double tap Halloween. How about that?
Welcome to Zombieland. Life is about more than just survival. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Hi, I'm Columbus.
Madison. Oh, whoopsie. I forgot the seatbelt rule.
My sister is gone.
We're gonna go get her. We ride it, Dawn. No! That's my ride!
Okay, is it me or does he kind of remind you of...
I think you double parked. Hope we don't get a ticket.
What is going on here?
What?
Am I hallucinating?
Yeah, let's give this a tap-roo. James, how do you feel the trailer did in selling Zombieland?
Okay, I think that the trailer didn't do a good enough job of selling the movie.
How so?
How so? I think the trailers were really lackluster, and they kind of mostly, in retrospect, just kind of like beat on the drum of, hey, this is the sequel to that movie that you either like or have heard of.
Sure.
It just felt very paint by numbers with a couple new characters here thrown in there. And then the trailer's button is also, when we reviewed the trailer at the time, we called it out for basically doing the Shaun of the Dead bit.
Right.
Of just seeing doppelgangers of the crew that we're following. That's all it felt like in the trailer. It felt like, oh, this was just going to be like this moment. And then that was the end of the trailer. I'm like, oh, that's also not a strong moment to go out on. The trailer kind of sold it as hey, we got them back together and you'll pay to see it, and then you'll probably forget about it afterwards. Whereas I thought the movie was much better than the trailers implied. That's my own personal feeling on it anyway.
So I think this trailer pretty adequately gives you what you're going to get in this movie. And I think a lot of the movie is kind of relying on the nostalgia for these characters. And I think it's relying on the nostalgia for like the rules of Zombieland and the new ones that get made. I do think that this does get across like the style of humor that you're going to get through most of this movie. And if you felt that other things whiffed through this trailer, it's kind of an indication of what's going to happen with the movie. So I look at this trailer and say, this honestly does sell you exactly what you're going to get.
Okay.
But to be fair, I do have a far lower opinion of the movie than you do. So let's just get into it.
Well, and also the first movie, right?
I'm at a
yeah, where I am over the moon about the first
Right.
movie. I loved Zombieland.
So we're going to get into the movie now. This is spoiler zone.
Yep.
Yeah, so I think because you and I talked about this a little bit before
Very
we started
briefly,
recording, even though I wasn't as big of a fan of Zombieland 1 as you were, we were both able to at least agree that this is worse than the first Zombieland.
I mean, that's one way of phrasing it. One way of phrasing it is the first one was better.
Yes, that is the more glass half full approach. Is the first movie is better. Yeah. Even with throwing the rules up on the screen and really playing with like the meta aspects of it, at the time back in 2009, that felt like really fresh and fun. And if you were in it for character arcs and stuff, you were kind of out of luck.
It was a fun romp. It wasn't.
It's supposed to.
That's not the kind of movie.
It's supposed to just entertain you.
Yeah.
So now here comes the second movie 10 years later, and they don't really do anything to change the title cards on screen aspect. We get some functions with Family Guy style cutaway gags of, oh no, that's not the best kill of the year. This is the best kill of the year.
Well, they did that in the first one, too.
But yeah, when we reviewed this, I had said, this movie just looks like it's not for me. And boy, nailed that. Because again, like, I like character arcs in my movies. And I know it's possible with zombie comedies because Shaun of the Dead exists. Yeah, like, it was just shotgunning jokes, which, like, I can appreciate if the jokes are landing. But I felt like a lot of the humor was really stale, too. The way I would put it is, in the chronology of the movie, the zombie apocalypse happens in 2009. But it feels like all of these jokes are from 97. It's like we have dumb Valley Girl jokes. And Zoe Dutch's character more or less exists for you to laugh at her idiocy, even though the movie itself is already pretty stupid.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. She was actually, when I'm watching the trailer, I thought she was going to be one of the most irritating parts of the movie, and she was actually one of the highlights for me. I thought she was really funny. She talks like she might be an idiot, but also I liked how there was like, she's not as much of an idiot as like Woody Harrelson is saying she is. Because she catches on to things slower than everyone else, but she still does. And I think she adds some good humor to the character interplay. Not jokes, not like you were saying, shotgunning jokes. When the movie's doing that, I think it doesn't always hit. But just the personality types, I thought she was really funny with Jesse Eisenberg. She was really funny with Emma Stone.
I think what makes her work a little bit better in conjunction with the group is, and they call it out in the movie, she's like the only one of them that's nice.
Yeah.
I would disagree with the notion of, well, she ends up catching on to things a little bit slower, so it's like the movie isn't necessarily calling her an idiot. I feel like there are jokes that are built around the fact that she catches on slower than most. I think that is what the central joke of her character is like, look at how dumb she is. She ate nuts even though she had a nut allergy. That's clearly
wasn't she eating something that had nuts in it? That
yeah,
she
it was
didn't
trail
know?
mix.
Oh, was it? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, it was trail mix.
Okay.
That was part of the joke.
Well, look, regardless, I thought the movie took some interesting turns, and like obviously we didn't see Jesse Eisenberg like shoot her, but I kind of bought it in the moment. Like, I was enjoying her character, and then all of a sudden they killed her, and I was like, oh, that's a bummer. Like, she was kind of the most interesting part about this movie, I thought, up until now. And then I like got used to the idea that she wasn't around, and then she showed up again, not zombie at all, and I'm like, what the hell happened? And then they're like, oh, it was just a peanut allergy, and I laughed really loud at that. And then we finally get to Thomas Middleditch and
Luke Wilson.
Yeah. And I was like, okay, here we go, the eye rolling Shaun of the Dead bit. But they did more with it than just like, hey, I'm acknowledging a doppelganger and that's it. They got to kill these fuckers.
They did get to kill
them,
them,
was
yes.
like really entertaining for me to see these like cocky assholes come in and be like, no, we're the top dogs, and then just totally eat it. And then,
I mean, like, even if Matthew McConaughey is busy, wait until Matthew McConaughey is not busy
oh my
to
God,
play the Luke Wilson
right?
character.
Yeah.
I think the Thomas Middleditch thing works for Jesse Eisenberg. But
yeah, that's great.
I will say the one action scene that I liked in this movie was when they killed their doppelgangers, because that was done in like a faux one take.
I love fake one takes, yeah.
That made it apparent how fucking exhausting it is to fight a zombie in close quarters. I thought that action scene was actually really engaging because there was more to it other than we just want to do close-ups of our characters shooting guns and looking cool.
Yeah.
It's like there was something more being conveyed there.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for the ending fight at all.
I liked the ending fight. I think the RV one was a little lackluster, but I think I liked the ending fight. It was pretty telegraphed how early on Woody Harrelson was like talking about the Native Americans herding buffalo off a cliff.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they get to this sanctuary and it's a tower. And I'm like, oh, well, this is going to end with them herding these zombies off the top of the tower. And even though I was able to know that it was coming or predict that it was coming, I still had a good time with it when it came. The Bill Murray stuff, what'd you think about the Bill Murray stuff?
Bill Murray stuff at the end is very good. And then I got out of the movie and was like, oh, I'm kind of like, all right, well, maybe that wasn't like as bad But then I remember what leads the zombies to the sanctuary for the climactic fight is fireworks. And
I thought that was funny.
But after they kill all of the zombies and like the day has been saved, they launch more fireworks to celebrate. And they don't call attention to the fact that that's dumb as fuck. And I thought the arc with Jesse Eisenberg and Emma Stone was really lackluster. It's, I want to marry you. And she's like, oh, I don't really want to commit to this. And then by the end, she decides to. It just made for a frustrating watch for me. Because, like, even if I think the arc is, like, too simple and easy, okay, like, I can at least see an attempt here. You're at least half-assing it. And right now, yeah, man, I mean, especially with the hippie jokes, because it's like, they like hacky sack. And it's like, what fucking year is it? So at this point now, I'm like, man, this is barely a quarter-ass. This might even be a sixth-ass of an attempt at a sequel right now. For me.
I think that is extremely harsh. I don't think it's that bad. It's definitely not as good as the first one.
So what was hitting for you with this? Because I will say, again, the interplay between Jesse Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson, I think is engaging. I'm
saying the interplay between all of the characters. Not the jokes, necessarily, but just their lane of what character they are interplaying with any other of the characters. I thought it worked. Like, there wasn't any part that I was just like, I don't buy this guy as this character, you know? Maybe Luke Wilson is the only one that I'm like, yeah, it just should have been Matthew McConaughey. But
well, and clearly Abigail Breslin was like, listen, I'll do this, but you only get me for 4 days. Figure it out.
That's true, too. But look, she gives it her all in those 4 days.
Sure.
The on-screen rules, it just went over the top with it, especially when we got to Thomas Middleditch, and he's like, I have commandments, not rules. And then they have, like, a pissing contest with their rule and commandment thing. It is an eternity. So that didn't land for me. I loved the running gag of they need to keep going back to the minivan. Like, that really landed for me really well. I don't think it was too nostalgic-y. It's not like they kept talking about Twinkies or they kept talking about, like, all this other stuff that's very specific to the first one.
I mean, they bring back Bill Murray, even though his character's dead.
Sure, but that's just like it's one mention in Rosario Dawson saying, you murrayed someone, and then it's the scene of him killing, which you already just said was pretty cool.
It was fun. Scene. It doesn't need to be in the movie.
Well, no,
it's like it's very clearly...
It's a fun romp of a movie. The movie doesn't need to exist at all.
Sure.
Neither does the first one.
Them bringing Bill Murray back is, well, the Bill Murray joke really landed in the first movie. Mm-hmm. We came up with a Bill Murray joke for the second movie, and we're using it. And I am acknowledging that joke is good.
Yeah.
It's just... At least with the Bill Murray joke, it's the first time where it didn't feel like they were trying to replicate the bit or...
No, they built off of it.
Yeah, exactly.
They literally went on a zombie killing rampage.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Al Roker's the first one that turns.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, like that's totally fun. And again, because it builds off of the first movie, I was enjoying myself a little bit more. I didn't really see anything within this that really built off of it. The only thing that was kind of cool that kind of went unsaid was the conceit of Abigail Breslin being like, I'm kind of fucking done with y'all. And she heads out to find a boyfriend. What I like about the general conceit is after the zombie apocalypse has been going on for 10 years and you can prove to yourself you can survive, then all of a sudden you go back to just being a teenager again. And there is something kind of interesting about that.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily build on it, but, you know, I like the idea that's in there. It's just there's a lot of really easy Valley Girl and hippie jokes when the humor's coming from characters, and I feel like that was at its strongest with Jesse Eisenberg and Woody Harrelson and their interplay with each other. I was having fun here and there, but just I felt like a lot of the jokes were kind of non sequitur and were coming more from like the Family Guy school of writing of just say something as long as you can get a laugh.
Sure.
And I just don't tend to respond to that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I just disagree. I just had a fun time with it. And it's hard for me to point at something specific and say, well, this thing. I mean, I did give a couple examples, but yeah. So, review time.
Yes, so for
rating time.
We go by should see again as our tippy top, glad I saw it, should have waited, or shouldn't have seen it. I might have shouldn't have seen it.
Yeah.
But if you're in my camp of the first one is fine, or I didn't care for the first one, just go ahead and give this a big old skip.
Yeah, that's fair. And this is a solid, glad I saw it for me.
All right, very cool.
There
all right.
you go.
I feel like the season of ghouls and zombies is all wrapped up.
Finally.
We're going to move on
Since
to...
it's November 4th or 5th
something
or whatever
third,
at this
maybe
point.
Is when this will drop. Well, whenever you're listening to it, it's probably November.
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to traveling and turkeys and all that stuff next time, because this is the end of this episode.
That's right.
If you enjoyed this show, but you wanted to talk to us about it, you can do that via email. If you reach out to us at trailerhitchmailbox@gmail.com, shoot us an email if you want to request a trailer. If you took umbrage with anything I said or with what James said, you're welcome to do that. Shoot us an email. Or if you want to do this on Facebook, maybe you also want to send us a Farmville request while you're at it. You can do that by searching Trailer Hitch Podcast on Facebook. We do have a page. Or if you would like to keep things shorter, say 280 characters long while you're reaching out to us, you can do that on Twitter at Trailer Hitch Pod. Or if you'd like to take a picture with your feedback, you can do that on Instagram at Trailer Hitch Podcast. Otherwise, you can find us on YouTube, Trailer Hitch Podcast. Go ahead, search for that. Subscribe to us. You're welcome to comment on those videos as well. Otherwise, if you would like to listen to the show, you can find us on Stitcher. Or you can also find us on iTunes or Apple Podcasts whenever that shift is going to happen.
Yep.
Rate us, subscribe to us, give us a review. Do all those good things. It helps us reach more listeners so they can hear that the Grudge trailer wasn't up to snuff. We would like to thank Danny Schmitz from Lost in a Name for the amazing intro song that you hear at the top of every episode. We would like to thank Rachel Ashley for the beautiful cover art that you see on our various social medias. You can find her work at Mighty Creations on Instagram. We'd like to thank Jenny Hawks, our intrepid bad movie and social media correspondent, for her sterling work week in and week out. And we would like to thank Casey Clowers for the amazing outro, which you'll hear momentarily.
Unless James has something to add.
I'm letting you do it. Do you want to add something?
No.
One of these days, you're going to do it, and it's going to rule. Until that time, ladies and gentlemen, we hope that you had a fun and safe Halloween, and if you didn't, well, fuck, let's hope Thanksgiving's better.
Toodaloo.
Trailer Hitch.
We almost had a full horror episode. Now that I think about it, Aeronauts is our...
It's pretty horrifying, though.
Do you want to dangle out of a hot air balloon? I sure don't.
I like the ground. I feel like gravity's
I will travel by boat. Fuck off.
It's like gravity's trying to tell me something. It's like, you're good here.
Why defy nature? Just stay on the ground.
Did you see Ad Astra?
Yeah, I did.
Every time I thought about like all the shit happening on the moon, or like the traveling commercially. That's
it's commercial.
Just like that whole bit, and I'm just like, if that happened in my lifetime, no amount of money or persuasion could ever get me to go on that.
What if they open a new Star Wars land on the moon?
No, nothing.
What
nothing.
If you could meet George
There's
Lucas
nothing.
on the moon?
No, there's nothing. I promise you. I'm dying on this planet. I'm not risking not dying on this planet. I love space.
I like to admire it from afar.
I want the universe for other people, for generations past me, for exploration and venturing out. That's great, and I want nothing more than that. But I know the time period that we're in, I will never be comfortable with that, and so I will die right here.
I just like the idea of, we're up in space, like we're on Mars or whatever, and like this is like first generation Mars, and they're like, I want to know what Earth is like, and they're like, good luck, buddy. And he travels to Earth, like his ship breaks or some shit, or he like, trips over all of the trash and he fucks up his leg. And then, he passes out and comes to, and there's you with a gas mask on, but even through the gas mask, we can see your beard has grown out to hell. And you're just kind of like, hey man, how's it going?
They're like, you should be dead. And I'll be like, yeah, I should be. That was the point of this.
What have you been doing? Just reading Star Wars books.
There's a lot of them. They invented actual lightsabers, and they're on Mars right now, but you have to be in Mars. I'm like, great, I'll read about it. I'm dying right here.
Take a picture and send it to me.
Yeah, that sounds lovely. I hope you enjoy it.